or questions. Should have written that in the script. Please talk, please use the chat. Chat is your friend, and answer. We can't answer live. Please ask questions, use the chat. I haven't set up a slide deck, but what we do sometimes is we'll set up a Google slide deck for collaboration, and people can capture questions in there, and then we make sure that as we go along, we capture the slides. And there are also apps for that as well, that are Q&A apps. And I think Zoom might even have introduced a Q&A section into Zoom. This is what we call a round. And what we do is we create a virtual table. Obviously, if it's a very big group, it takes a long time. But I thought we could just do a very quick round, just 10 seconds each. I don't want a long spiel, just to demonstrate how it works, but also just to get to know who's in the room. So if you could just say your name, the organization, and what you see out your window. Quick description. Cindy Rose, let's start with you. You'll have to put your mic on, and then you'll have to speak. If you want to, we'll only go through 3 or 4 people. I think we won't have time to do everyone, but I just want to demonstrate this technique.
Okay, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So I've got my own business providing swimwear wraps for cold water swimming at the moment. I've just deviated from that, as well as a yoga instructor.
Wonderful. And what can you see out your window?
What can I see out my window? The beautiful mountain and lots of city buildings.
Great. Ashley, thank you, Cindy. Welcome.
Dena, Ashley's not here. She didn't.
Oh, okay, she didn't make it. Elisa here? No?
No, she also hasn't.
Di?
Hi, my name's Di Rosen. My organization is Di Rosen Productions. I'm in the film, video, and TV industry, and I can see buildings and trees and a bit of the mountain through my window.
Lovely. Lovely. And Jason? Thanks, Di.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jason. I am a workshop facilitator specializing in stress management. And when I look out my window, I've got the most stunning view of the next door building.
Okay, great. Let's keep going. We've actually got time. Brian, good morning. Is Brian here?
He also hasn't made it.
Hasn't made it. Great. Diana.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Diana, and I'm the director of Cape Jewish Seniors Association. And when I look out my window, I can see Robben Island, a flock of birds, a roof, and a boat.
Wonderful. Good morning. And Peter.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Peter Stienakal. I'm a deployment manager at KPMG. KPMG, not KPMG. I'm still sometimes getting confused with it. I work for Deloitte. And I am, when I look out my window, I'm just moved into a new apartment, so I see dust and a construction site for now. But I'm looking forward to what is to come in the short future.
Nice. Okay, lots of noise as well, I'm sure. Hi, Bev. Are you still driving?
I am. I just transferred to my computer, my desk. Hi, I'm Bev from a company called Gatehouse Commercials, and we facilitate commercials for international clients in South Africa. And I can see the next door neighbor's horrible house and a bit of the mountain and the cable car station.
Okay, great. At least you can see some of the mountain and not only the horrible house.
Actually, I'm being disingenuous. It's a very nice house. It's just blocking my view.
Oh, okay. Hajira, good morning. Thanks, Bev.
Hi, good morning. I work for the Cape Jewish Seniors. We deal with the psychosocial support and psychosocial care for the elderly. When I look out the window, I see my neighbor's house and electric fencing.
Oh, lovely. And So I did this last week. I was running a focus group with people who were all over the world, and some of them were in Myanmar, and they were on tropical islands, and it was very unfair to. But just to say, this is an icebreaker, just like we do icebreakers offline. We can also do them online. It just creates a sense of safety, breaks the tension, creates the circle, creates a sense of cohesion. Obviously, it's ideal if you exactly know who's going to turn up on the day, or maybe you do it on the second day of an ongoing process. And the looking out your window, bringing something. We all know that we're in the personal space often, so it's about bringing something, recognizing where people are and where people are at, and bringing that personal space into the session, which in an offline event is much easier. You can actually see people. So just some rules for engaging, again, about creating that sense of safety. It's it can be a very confusing space. And so, so we'd like to share some rules for engaging. So just to say that, sometimes we have different platforms, like we'll share with you, for example, a Mentee. We'll ask you to engage with that. So please do participate in different platforms, be patient with each other and with me. Still, things go wrong, technology drops and so on. If you're having struggle with bandwidth, close your background applications. They take up bandwidth, and also your video, it's the uploaded video that is taking the bandwidth, not the downloading. So if you're struggling with bandwidth, you can switch off your own video. If you stay present, please try not to multitask. I know it's very tempting when you're at your computer. A tip actually is to, if you can, to sit back away from your screen. Move yourself away from your keyboard. Chat is your friend, so please just chat. Lisa's helping me to produce today, so she'll be monitoring the chat and seeing if there's anything that wants to needs my attention. Please mute your mic when not talking, and if you can, especially if your video is not on, say your name before you speak, and then also say over when you're done. Okay, so I would love to know what for you makes a virtual event. I mean, a great virtual event. We'll come to Check Your Tech later. What makes a great virtual event? We are going to share a link to the Mentee. In the chat, so you can click on that, and this is not the right one. Sorry, I had to change it. See, there's no room for error online. Says she, making errors. But Lisa's going to share in the chat a link to a Mentee. And
Is that the link, Dena? Is that the link?
Yeah.
Okay.
Click on that link. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to share that. The question is, in your experience, what makes a great virtual event? You will get a screen, and you enter your words into that screen. I am going to get the sharing window so we can. Where is it gone? What makes for a great virtual event in your view? Some strange reason, my Zoom has gone off screen. Try it here. Getting some nice responses. I wish I could show them to you. I can't get to my Zoom. It's gone off screen. Very strange. There we go. So here we go. Share screen. I'm going to. Okay, can you see these responses now? Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So this is a great app if you want to do brainstorming or you want to do voting. It allows you to do all sorts of things. So what makes for a great virtual event? The ability to interact with the attendees, not keep it one-way monologue, exactly. And this is one way of interacting where it's a kind of a silent interaction, where people are interacting and engaging. Dead air with videos off is disconcerting, it is. Minimal tech issues, on mute so we don't hear background noise, content and interaction, educational but entertaining in a relaxed environment. Yes, try to create that relaxed space. A sense of belonging, humor, acknowledging each participant. That's great. So a lot of these things, as you can see, are the same as offline, right? The people's attendance, energy, ensuring you mix some business with pleasure, and the presenter gives her talk, there's interaction with the viewers. So can you see that actually a lot of these tools and these things that make great virtual events are actually the same as in the offline space. So what we try to do is to design an event that takes care of both the process and the content. So you often are responsible for making sure that people are getting through the content of the meeting. But so, that's whatever you want to do, if it's strategic planning or if it's, designing a production or whatever it is. But you also want to make sure that you're getting through the content. So that's our first tip, is to really consider the task and the experience, the content and the process. The third is really second is to create a good structure, beginning, a middle, and an end. The third is to plan, and have a producer, is Lisa in my case today, and to select your tools very, very carefully. So we'll be going through these tips. But before we do that, I just want to go through the check your tech so that you can engage. And also, it's sometimes quite an alienating space. So you want to make sure that people can do that. So on the left-hand side, you've got your mic and your video. You can switch that on and off. Videos on or videos off, guys? What do you prefer? Let's hear it in the chat. Videos on or videos off? So that's it. You can rename yourself. You've got a participants list where you can see who's in the room. And you can ask people to rename themselves. If you can use that as an icebreaker, you can say, rename yourself with your name of your organization or an adjective to describe yourself or something like that. And then the chat is really where you can engage. People can write messages and brainstorm and things like that. Okay. This is a really key function. It's the reactions bar. It's on the right-hand side. Here you can raise your hand, or you can show reactions if you like or dislike things. You think things are funny. It's a way to create that kind of fun, engaging space. Just so that you know, raise hand stays up. So you have to lower it again. The others just appear very shortly, and they appear on your video screen. The raise hand appears on your participant list. So if you want to invite people to talk, but you don't want everyone to shout over each other, you ask people to raise their hands. You can then, and the person who's put their hand first goes to the top of the list. So you know which order people put their hands in. And then you ask them to lower their hand, or the producer can actually lower their hand once they've spoken. So let's try that. Everyone raise your hand. You go to the reactions bar and you raise your hand. Please raise your hands. Everybody in the room, everyone. It's very useful if you want to see people, if you have a break, if you want to see if people are all back from the break. It's better to use raise the hand than the reactions, because the reactions, as I said, they disappear. Great. And then you go, and once you've done that, you can go and lower your hand again, so that we know. Or if I make, I think we'd have to make you a co-host, Lisa. Are you a co-host? As a producer? I'm a host. You're a host. Okay, I'm probably the co-host. Great. So that's raise hand. So this is the structure that I'm going to follow. Hopefully give you all the tips. So the first one is you consider the task and the experience. And really as I said, the message is that all facilitations, online and offline, have both practical aims and experiential aims. So you first need to consider what you need to accomplish, what outcomes are needed, and then the experiential aims. How do you want the group to feel? What do you want the experience to be? So it is important to remember that the online environment is daunting, it's confusing, people feel disconnected. So it's really important to create that safety at all times. And one of the things we say is if you're having any issues or any challenges, please just message Lisa, the producer. She will handle all your queries. She'll help you with your tech. Sometimes we have a separate breakout room that we can move people off to, and so on. So really, and also you have to be very clear with your instructions. It's can be quite frustrating. I often even get frustrated when I'm participating in events. So choose the group process that will help you meet your aims. So ask yourself, what are the steps or stages which will help the group to reach their aims and then keep engagement high? What is your role? Are you a neutral facilitator? Are you a chairperson, or are you responsible for the content? Because obviously, if that's a different role. Do you need a co-facilitator or producer? You probably will. We really don't recommend doing these events without a producer. If you drop off the call, there's no one to pick up the message. There's no one to continue. I mean, I did a virtual facilitation training where last month, this is actually a full day course. I've tried to just pick out a few tips, but everything that could go wrong went wrong. We had load shedding unannounced. It was the first day of this kind of unannounced load shedding. We weren't prepared. My colleague's laptop had no battery. My backup battery was down. We had a new person working in our office, and she switched off our meeting halfway through. And literally, but those were all teachable moments, right? These things happen. You have very little control. And I'm sure that those of you who are in production understand what this is like. It's not when you're in a room and you can pick up a felt tip marker, a Koki, and you can work on your flip chart and you can be spontaneous. That doesn't really work in the online space. Everything has to be by the minute. And it's really good to have a producer for that. And then you can also decide, will it be synchronous or asynchronous? So in-person or virtual or hybrid model, you don't really need to do everything sitting in the same online space. You can send people away to do exercises and come back in an hour. You can do group work, if it's an ongoing process and so on. So you decide, and very often content is best done asynchronously, record a video lecture, let them watch some videos or do some readings, and then you come back and use the online time for discussion, for engagement, for creating that sense of community. The second is to create the good structure. And here we really want to just emphasize that it's very much the same, I suppose, as a face-to-face session, where you obviously need to do good design and preparation. You then need to convene and onboard participants. So this is the extra step where you should ideally check that people have the right technology. If you're planning to use collaborative tools, that people can access those tools. People sometimes come in on their telephones and then they can't. And then we need to know that who's on their phone. You pair them up with someone who isn't, so that they can use the tools and participate equally. But we've also done some onboarding now. We've checked your tech, we did some sound checks earlier when you came in and so on. We will share with you these slides and the recording as well. We also, then you want to facilitate an online process, obviously for maximum engagement and productivity. And you want to wrap up your process, which is, online, you want to close it, but you also want to then, as we said, send people the tools, the resources. You could we often leave collaborative spaces up so people can come and continue to engage. But people don't often do that without reminders, but it's a nice thing to be able to have. So the third tip is plan, and have a producer. I'm sure the producers in the room like to hear that, but this is really like a radio show if you think about it. Here you are, I've got the floor. And we've got to make sure that it goes really, really smoothly. There isn't much room for spontaneity. You have to have your tools set up. You have to have the links handy. If you're showing a video, it has to be there on your screen waiting. You just have to click play. All of these things need very detailed planning. So what we do is we create sessions in 2 to 10 minute slots, a very detailed script, very much like you would if you're in the theater. Any of you worked in the theater? Just give me a thumbs up. Okay. So you'll see that I'll show you a script just now. It's really important to know exactly, when your curtains are opening, when your lights are closing. That's the analogy. Yeah, the curtains are opening, closing, your lights are going on and off. This is exactly like that. Share out the tasks with your co-facilitator or producer so they know exactly what you're doing and what they're doing. And you also leave space in your script for, if you're running behind, know between the two of you what you're going to keep in and what you can cut out. So you're not scrambling. And people in the online space, when it's over, it's over. They've got another meeting in 5 minutes time. It's not like, it's, oh, the coffee's outside, but can we push it for another 15 minutes? It's different to the face-to-face. The timing is much tighter. We usually with our producer will have like a separate chat going on our WhatsApp groups and so on, so that we can communicate as well. So the role of the facilitator is really responsible for the content and the process, whereas the producer's role is really the technical process and the backstage. Sharing the links, making sure everything's ready, checking the tech, helping people who fall off, and so on. Here's an example of a script that we like to use. You can see that it is it's very tight. So we've got the segments, what slide it's going to be, the session, the facilitator who's facilitating. Then there's instructions for the producer. I'll show you a little trick in Zoom. There's a button called annotate at the top of in your tools bar, and you can choose something called a spotlight, and you can spotlight where you're pointing. You can, I think, if you're the host. So so the producers got their very strict instructions, record the workshops. So earlier when Lisa started recording a bit late, I was like, oh, that should have been in the script, right? So she would then have record the workshop in her script and remembered to record the workshop. And then any tools or links that you're going to be using, you're going to put in here. Okay, if it's the Mentee link like we shared earlier, or it's a Google sheet that you're working in, that's going to be all clear for the producer. Are there any questions at this point before I move to the next? We will have time for Q&A at the end. I'm just going to run through these tips, and then we'll have some time for the Q&A at the end. But we've actually got time, so motoring through this. If you've got, and let's see what people say. Yeah.
Sorry, questions. But
Yes.
I want to go.
Sorry, who's speaking?
It's Jason. Jason speaking. Yes. Hi. One quick question, which is not about what you're doing right now, but to go back to when you did the not on your slides, when we went to the link.
Yes.
When we went to the link to do the voting on the Mentimeter.
Yes.
Okay. You shared the results on you screen shared the results with us.
Yes.
As the host of that Mentimeter, do you see who put what answers in, or does it just come up randomly, the answers?
Yeah, it's just random.
Okay, just wanted to know that. Thank you.
Yeah. And when you set up the Mentee, you get a sharing link, and you get a link for capturing your responses. Yes. And then you get another link for sharing, another view for sharing results.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, no, we don't see. So let's see what you said about video on and off. So some people said video on more, it's engaging, it's better for the host. Yes. On is better for the presenter. Yes, it definitely is better for the presenter. It feels so much more alive. Video, where do you set up the Mentee? Okay, so what we should do is share maybe a link with you. It's www.mentee.com. It's a great tool, actually. And you can do, on Mentee, you can do polls, you can do voting, you can ask people to, 3 things they like: word clouds, they like most about the session, it's got what graphs and so on.
Sorry, Dena, may I interject and ask one more question while you're on exactly on the subject?
Please do
It's
it.
Jason again. When you're doing polls and stuff, do you find that you get a better compliance if you're using the poll app in Zoom or the Mentimeter one, or is it irrelevant?
Probably the poll app in Zoom, because some people get a bit flustered going to another tool. So I wouldn't normally do it so upfront, go to another app, bring it in, but I really wanted to demonstrate to you how you can integrate apps into other apps into the facilitation. So
Sorry for all
both
the
work.
questions.
No, the questions are great because it really helps make it more engaging, and also questions that you're asking other people might be wondering as well. The other thing with Mentee that's quite nice is that people can actually put it into their phone. So they don't have to do it on their computer. They can engage with Mentee on their phones.
Cool.
Lisa's put the link to Mentee in the chat. Thanks for that, Lisa. You don't incorporate it into Zoom. You have to incorporate it into the session, into the virtual facilitation session, and then we share the link into the Zoom chat. So it's not one platform. It's different platforms that we're working in. We've got Zoom, we've got Mentee. Sometimes you might have a Google slide open. Sometimes you might have another apps that I'll show you just now, and so you've got different environments, but it's all happening in your laptop. The communication is happening through Zoom, the kind of face-to-face virtual communication with video, but there's maybe other things happening in other tools. How do you select those tools? I'll talk to you about that just now. So for video on video, if it's a tricky one, I think for me, the general rule of thumb is it's either all videos on or all videos off. What you tend to do is you tend to favor those people who you can see. Now, because I'm screen sharing, I can't really see you anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I can probably get the view somewhere, yeah, but you do tend, but obviously we have bandwidth issues. That's a first world rule. We can't all have videos on, for example. So it's really just up to your preference. But what I do invite is if people are speaking, that they put their video on when they're speaking. And then as the facilitator, just be mindful to incorporate those people whose videos are off, because we do tend to forget them. So select your tools carefully. That's a really important one. There are many. I think we hired a woman who specializes in online training to help us with putting our training online. And she gave us a list of about 99 different online tools that you can use for learning and training and facilitation. And her advice to us was select the 3 or 4 or 5 tools that you like, get to know them really well, and use those same tools for the same actions, so outcomes, the same activities that you're looking for. And I'll explain what I mean there. But before we go into that, let me ask you, how do you feel about breakout rooms? How do you feel about breakout rooms? Zoom is a nice tool because it allows you to do breakouts. When you're going into a breakout room, how do you feel?
So, Dena, can I come in here?
Yes.
So I use breakout rooms in some of the training and the networking events that we run at ORT Jet. So for me as the facilitator, I think it's an incredible tool, and it's so powerful. And when the groups of people come back from their breakout rooms, the feedback is generally incredibly positive, that they've loved it. I find it difficult as a participant. I'm not sure why, because I understand how brilliant they are. So I have this double relationship with breakout rooms, to be very honest, and all the people in the room know that I do use it in terms of that I need them. But yeah, it's a difficult one for me. Okay, so I think what we're hearing from you, and I see from some people, like Bev is saying, it's quite an awkward space. Other people are saying they love it. These two reactions, you either love it or it makes you nervous, or it's both.
And there is always that awkward moment when you put people into breakouts, but I do notice that when we use breakouts, the vibe and the energy changes when people come back. They've broken the ice. Also, if you're managing a big group, so what are the typical size of the groups that you guys manage? Let's hear it in the chat. Is it 0 to 5, 5 to 20, 20 plus? If you're running a big session, there's no way you can have group discussions in this space. So you have to use breakouts. What's really important is to tell people what room they're going to be in. You're going to room 1. This is your group. These are the people who are going to be in the room with you. You count down before you open the room. Make sure that they go in. Tell them what the instructions are. You can have the instructions for group work in a separate, like a Google sheet, which you share the link to, so they can see exactly what they're supposed to do. You can have the names of the groups in that sheet, so if people forget what group they do and what their assignment is, because often you want to give people different assignments. So you can have all of those instructions in a Google sheet, because now when you're putting into a room, you're disconnecting them from the facilitator. They've forgot to ask questions. They don't know what's going on. Oh my God, they've suddenly been transported into the space. It's a lot of awkwardness. So it's best to have very clear instructions, and then also to have that available in a document that everyone can share. So Jason's done up to 48 people. So in a group like that, you either want to have like really kind of just like a one-way interaction, or you want to use the chat, but otherwise you're going to have to use breakouts if you want to do any group work, especially if it's content stuff, right, Jason? Diana's also doing up to 45
Sorry, I was just
people.
looking for my unmute. No, I use when it's a group like that, I ended up having like 9 different breakout rooms. When you went regularly you do something as a monologue type thing and then send them away, and then feedback sessions. That's how we ran it when it was that big.
Yeah. And Robert, I see you also had some experience.
Yes, hi. So I'm actually a deployment facilitator for Deloitte. So when we facilitate groups, so occasionally we never like to have groups more than 30 participants, and then I always like an even number of 6, just because it allows like an equal sharing of thoughts and concepts. And then we actually like to use it for a teach back moment. So us as facilitators deliver the content and the theoretical knowledge, and then we like, Dena, why don't you come back and reflect to us, pretend we don't know what we just facilitated. And then you have that reflective opportunity from a breakout room.
Yeah. So that's great. So we do that. And I've also done that to kind of teach back. We also do that. We've done a process. I did training. It was over 3 days. And we had small groups, and each group had to prepare the session for the next morning. So we had face-to-face in the morning. The afternoon was asynchronous. So they worked in their groups in their own time. They had to arrange themselves, although they knew that, they had booked that day for the training. It's just that, we weren't in a Zoom space. They could organize however they wanted to. And the next morning they had to present and teach us. So that's also a really nice way to do things. And you don't have to be in this virtual environment the whole time. Great. So yeah, groups are really good for reflection. That's a really nice way to use them. Thanks, Jason. Lisa suggests, do we do random or breakout rooms? I mean, I think that again really depends on your process. If you want to, it really depends. If you want to have people from the same organization together or team, or you want to mix people of different seniority levels, there is always power issues to consider. Even offline, online, if you've got lots of people from different hierarchies and you want to get everyone's view, sometimes it's better to mix people. You've got a mixed skill set. It's better to be, and also to be conscious of how you're putting people into groups. And if you want the same groups over time, then you must remember, you must write the groups down. You must know exactly who's in what group, so you'll be able to reconstruct those groups, because they don't stay. Once your Zoom meeting ends, you have to create the breakout groups again. So the tools that you use are the tools that should enable you to do that process and that content that we mentioned in the first tip. So you want to have methods that will create safety and get participants engaged. So you really want to use a combination of individual work, paired work, group work, and plenary conversations. and you want to have, for example, individual workers, maybe, you know, as we say, put in the chat, or Mentee is working as an individual, you're thinking about it, you're writing it in, there are other tools for that as well. You might want to put people into pairs, breakout groups, and so on. Use a different variety of media and tools, so you can use your WhatsApp group. We've done, for example, you set the group up beforehand, and then when you're doing what do you see out your window, you actually just ask people to snap a picture of the window, or it's quite funny if you ask people to take a picture of their feet, because you can see all the kinds of shoes that people are wearing, like their slippers. So that's quite funny, and it breaks the ice, and it makes us all human, and that's a really nice way to start a session. And then use energizers, use icebreakers. You know, we do things like, it's called Touch Blue, where you say, you know, we could try it for a second now. I think we do have a bit of time. Yeah. So where I'm going to just stop sharing for a second. So I'm going to just call out something, and you all have to grab it and show it to us. Okay. So, and the last person to grab it calls the next person. Okay. Your mouse. No mouse. So everyone has to put their camera on. Oh, I should have said that first. Put your cameras on. Okay, Jason doesn't have a mouse, so he has to call. What's the next thing, Jason? Call out something for us.
Your pen for making notes.
Pen. I've got a pencil. Does that count? Okay, great. Who's last? Who was last? Di. Bev's off. She's gone. Di. You've got to put your mic on, and you've got to hold up something from your desk. Coffee mug. Okay, coffee mug. Great. So you get the idea. You can play games, you can be playful, you can do all of those things. And it's nice to introduce those things. You can even do body movement, you know, get everyone to stand up and spell their name with their hands or things like that. Okay, so that's all possible. And you do want to do that, and you do want to encourage that. Okay, I'm going to go back to screen sharing. Can you see my PowerPoint? Lisa?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So that's how we create that sense of safety, and we also keep people engaged and awake, and we make sure that people haven't switched off and are actually participating. Are there any of, what tools have you liked and used in your practice? Let's hear from the chat. There's so many tools, as I said. Are there any that you particularly like? So Anna's used Kahoot. I think the teachers like to. I've never actually. I would love to use Kahoot. I need to learn how to use it. I see my kids use it. We're using it when they were at school. Mentimeter. Anyone use Mural or Jamboard? Okay, so some of these tools are for one-way interaction, and some of them are for group interactions, where you can actually collaborate. So for collaborating on documents or text, where you want people to, for example, brainstorm or use sticky notes, then the tools for that are Google. You can use Google Docs. You can set up sticky notes. I just use the shapes function, and you can actually put sticky notes into the Google Docs. But for documents and text, it's better to use Google Docs or Etherpad or Padlet or Jamboard. So those are tools for that. For brainstorming or sticky notes, Ideas Board is great, but you can't move things around. So Ideas Board, it's static, but like what we saw with the Mentimeter, but you can do a very nice brainstorm even in categories. So you can set up 3 categories, for example, and ask people to brainstorm, you know, what they liked, what they didn't like, what they want to do in the future, what they want to change, for example. Tri-Cider, Group Map, Google Jamboard, Mural. Mural is a very powerful tool for brainstorming and collaboration. It's got a very big canvas, so you can set up areas and you can actually move through the mural. It's a bit more complicated to use, so it's better for a longer process. Jamboard is a lovely tool if you want to just brainstorm, or you also want to incorporate video, all different kinds of multimedia. For planning, organizing, diagrams, and visual gathering. So if you actually want to do a brainstorm and gather ideas together, cluster things, move the sticky notes around, then these are the nice tools. Lenoir, Mural, Miro. I mean, I don't know all of them. I've used Padlet, I've used Google Sheets, I've used Mural. I haven't tried Miro, although I believe it's fantastic. I don't know Lenoir, but I do know that, Orla uses it, and it's one of those things you could explore. And then for communicating asynchronously, obviously, so offline, you can create a WhatsApp group, email, you can have a Slack channel, creative community, or Google Classroom has really nice features. So there's very different ways that you can create an offline community as well. But my tip is that you choose one tool per function. So for example, in a session, especially if you're doing it over a number of days, that people know that when we're going to Ideas Board, it's a brainstorming space. When we go to Padlet, it's a space for organizing and planning. When we go to Google Slides, it's where we do our Q&A, right? Or our group work. We create like an an online virtual flip chart or collaboration deck. So people know that when they're doing group work and they've got to capture stuff, it goes into the Google Slide or the Google Doc. And that again, it creates a sense of safety, it's less intimidating, and people know what's going to happen in that space. And then get to know those tools well, right? I don't think there's much point in having, well, I don't say there isn't much point, but I mean, it's better that you know your tools well and what they can do and try to have too many in your arsenal. So this is, for example, what the Mentee meter looks like. So you can see you've got multiple choice. You can ask people, what are the 3 top preferences for lunch? And you can give them clicks, chicken, meat, vegan. And then they can choose, so you can get multiple choice. You can do word clouds. One thing that you really liked about the session, you can do open-ended, which is what we did earlier, where it captures them. You can do scales, rate the session from 1 to 10, or how do you feel about, the whatever issue is he talking about. You can have a Q&A in Mentee, which is nice as well. So you can collect question and answers and so on. It's quite a nice app for that, but it is one way. It's, people can capture it individual exercise. Mural is a collaboration tool. It's really amazing. It's got lots of templates. So it's got templates for like stakeholder analysis. It's got templates for all sorts of things. And you bring the templates into the mural and then you can work over them. So they've got the template set up on the side. You set up your board beforehand. It's a massive space. And you can make zoom in and you can zoom out. I've seen conferences which actually did the whole layout in like a virtual layout in Mural. They said, this is the conference. Even though it was absolutely virtual and it was all just links, they created the sense that of the space. There's a lounge, these are the different things that are happening in the conference. So you can see you've got sticky notes, you can move them around, people can collaborate. The only thing is what can happen is someone can delete everything by mistake. We've had that in a session where one person just went undo and everything was gone. So what we try to tell the producer to do is in this session is to make, just remember every now and again to create a copy. And especially if you're leaving it up over a week or so, you want people to interact with it. Like I did a theory of change session and the team were very engaged and they wanted to work on it after we did like a big consultation, and then they wanted to work on it in between. And we left it up, and then I just kept making sure I was making copies and keeping backups because anyone can go in and delete it. So you don't want that to happen. That's a very nice tool.
Dena,
yes.
Sorry, before you move on, can I just ask a question on that?
Yeah.
Is that one of those, a lot of these ones, Mural, any of them, are they ones that if you're going to be using beyond just a Q&A type poll, does the other person need to have that downloaded or whatever on their computer, or is it all done on an online platform that I'm just accessing your one that you've downloaded, or do I need an account type scenario with, for example, Mural?
So these are all virtual tools, so they all exist in the online space. So that's why you can collaborate virtually on them, right? We tell people to log into Mural as a guest, as a visitor, because
Okay.
then they can log in. They don't have to create a profile.
Okay.
What's quite nice about Mural is if you go into their website, you can sign up as a consultant, and then they give you a lot of free privileges, and you can get 10 people that you can invite to your board to collaborate on an ongoing basis. So if you sign up to their consultant network, you get a lot of freebies.
Thank you.
But all of these tools, Mentimeter as well, you've seen how we got into that. What you do need if you're using Google tools and Google Classroom, you will need to either have a Google email address or associate your email address to a Google account beforehand. So that's a bit tricky. And then if you are setting up Google Sheets and Google Tools, you must remember to make them accessible and editable by everyone before you share it. So you can change the settings. So people could just view it, but if you actually want people to collaborate with you in that tool, you need to make sure the settings are set up that way.
Dena, before you carry on, there are a few people who've raised their hand. I don't know, for some reason you can't see raised hands.
Because I have my my share screen on, which makes it a bit tricky, which is why we need a producer. Thank you, Lisa.
So if Diana can go first, and then Sharon's got a question as well.
Great.
So I wanted to ask, do you set this up prior to the Zoom meeting starting?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if we go back to our scripts, so if you see in the script, in the producer column, you'll see, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks down, it says share screen for Google Slides, post link for the Google Doc, and there is the link already there. There's no way that you can keep people waiting while you're setting these tools up. Everything has to be set up, ready. If you want questions, it's best, if you want people to do an exercise, you have it already prepared. How long do you think it's quicker or longer to set up a virtual event than a face-to-face event? I've just given you the answer, basically. It takes about 3 times longer to set up a virtual event than a normal event. Because you have to, as I said, you can't just walk in with your flip chart and your pen and break people into groups and have your facilitator's toolbox. Everything has to be pre-prepared.
Yeah.
There's no room for error. I could not now go and set up a Google Doc, change the settings, find the link, make you all wait. It doesn't happen. Yeah, great question. Thank you for that. And there was another question. Let's see. No.
Yes, Sharon, and then I think Bev Wynn also may have had a question. I could be wrong. So Sharon, over to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
These tools seem fantastic. I actually haven't heard of half of them. How would you integrate them into your Zoom? Do you have multiple windows open at the same time with these different apps?
Yeah, so I will have, if I'm using a Google Doc and a mind map and an ideas board and maybe a video, I'll have them all open in my browser.
In different tabs.
Yeah, in different tabs. And then as we move into those, we share the link. Now, if I want you, for example, to get into a Google Sheet, and I want you to do most of the group work, for example, using a Google Sheet, I'll do an icebreaker using Google Sheets at the beginning. So that I might, for example, ask you to write in the Google Sheet what you saw out your window, or put your name into the circle. So you write your name and you pull up a chair, so that you're getting people onboarded onto the tool right in the beginning. So when you can save time in the actual group work, people know they've already opened it, you've sorted out all the tech. And you can also do that beforehand. If you have, if you're going to be working with people, you can actually contact everyone 2 or 3 days before and make sure they know how to get into it. That's the ideal world. I think that doesn't often happen, but you can say, look, we're going to be using these tools. Please try and access them before the session.
Thanks.
And that's why I say choose a few that you know which ones are going to be for different functions and stick with them. Because you also don't want to get flustered in a facilitation. It's not great. Okay, so let's see what else we've got. So Tri-Sider is for, this is, again, it's for kind of collaborative brainstorming, and you can also vote. So people can vote for ideas. And you can do that on ideas board as well. So let's say you've done a brainstorm, someone can go and click on it and say, I really like that idea, for example, and can multiply it. Padlet is great for multimedia collaboration. I've seen people do birthday cards on Padlet, which is great for 50th, for example, and everyone goes in and creates a message and they upload a video, and it's really nice for that. We did a campaign for our business at the end of the year. It was called Wish for the World, and we invited our clients and our stakeholders, partners, to come and put a wish for the world onto the Padlet for 2022, and then we actually used that for our social media. We could, draw on their posts, and we shared the Padlet, and it was a really nice campaign. If you want to do it for theory of change, for example, or mind mapping, you can do that as well. So you can see how you create arrows between the blocks. You can vote, I like or dislike on the blocks and so on. So it's a nice tool for that. Then there's mind mapping tools. This is Google Jamboard. It's very basic, but it's a bit like slides. You can create lots of multiple pages. I used it for a focus group recently, and I had different collaboration questions, and I had one question per slide, and then we just moved through the slides, and they could move through the slides. They had to do, things that worked, things that didn't work, things they would improve, and each one was set up on a different slide. And you can use sticky notes, you can group things and move things around. It's a very nice tool. So that's all I wanted to share with you today. We've had a lot of question and answers during the session, but we've got a few minutes now if there's anything outstanding. My main tip to you is be prepared and then just do it. So try your luck, and you'll get more confident as things go wrong, and things do go wrong. As you saw earlier, my Zoom disappeared. I'm like, what? That's never happened to me before. I couldn't find it. Right, so that's what I have, my few tips to share with you today. Any questions? Lisa, maybe you can share the link that's in the script to the blog from Orla in the chat, and we'll send it to you afterwards as well. There's a few more tips that she's written up there. Any feedback, reactions, things that you'd like to share that you do that we haven't maybe mentioned?
Hi, it's Jason again. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of the talking, but I've enjoyed it, and I've used minimal amount of apps outside of the Zoom platform for fear of their going wrong scenario. So I've never used anything besides, for example, the polls on Zoom. And yes, I know you can say, oh, this went wrong today, and I know things do go wrong, etc. But it seems relatively flawless that it does work. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. And also for some of the apps that I'd never even heard of before. So appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So again, Jason, if you are going to do it, it's best to have a producer. Have someone who can back you up. Share the links. Also, you can visit the groups. Bev said group works can be very kind of alienating. You can actually visit the groups. Do you know that you can actually move between?
Yes, no, I know how to. Yeah, well. I know that.
Yeah.
The worst thing that's happened to me, just to share it with you, was luckily it was only a group of 7 people, and my internet dropped and I was out the group.
Yeah.
And it was all participants just sitting for about 3 minutes until I managed to get back in.
I had the same thing once, quite in the early days, and I actually had an intern producing for me, and I had to drive to my office, and I was on the phone and telling him what to say on WhatsApp, and he was saying it, and I could actually hear what people were saying back to him through the WhatsApp, and then I was responding, and I got to my office, which is luckily not so far from my home, and then I eventually logged in and took over. So it's good to have a producer as well, someone who can also engage with the content, and can help. It's really, really important to do that.
From my side, especially at the beginning, because ORT Jet also had to adapt. March 2020, we went from a fully in-person organization to completely online, and we had to make it work. And thank God it did work for us, and we could continue. But for me, it was finding the courage to make the change and there were a lot of sleepless nights, and it was incredibly, I was very fearful and obviously scared because it was new and hell of a scary. But once we did it, it was exciting because it opened up a whole new avenue. But I've stuck to Zoom. And is it okay to stick to Zoom and use the tools on Zoom? Or do you feel that that's not good enough anymore?
I don't know what other people think.
I'll change it around slightly and say, why do so many companies prefer Microsoft Teams, which is terrible?
They're locked in. They're locked in. Bev?
You know, in my experience, I found that, you know, so obviously the last 2 years in terms of the film industry, we've moved on to shooting and then streaming our shoots, you know, virtually. And whenever we haven't used Zoom, it's always just been a disaster. And for me, like, Zoom is this big company. If it's never going to fall down, you know, it's just, so I love the safety of knowing that whatever, it was universal, it was never going to fall down. I didn't mind whether it was Team or Zoom, but I always wanted a big underpinning of a big company underneath me, because it was never going to fall down. And I just wanted to say thank you to you, Dena. It's incredible how we think we have had we've learned so much in the last 2 years, and then we come on and you go, wow, I still am learning. I didn't know that. So I love that. It's just, you know, just to be able to go, wow, really? I didn't know that. So thank you.
Lovely. And that's always my anxiety going into facilitation. Oh, I'm going to be so boring. Everyone knows the stuff already. How can I teach something new? So thanks, Viv.
And I'm such a Luddite, and I really had to, like, computers commit suicide when they see me. They're like, oh my God, here she comes. And you were so, like, clear, and even I got it. So thank you.
So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dena, for really being incredibly generous with telling us and sharing this great information so that we can all do our jobs and our roles better, and also not feel so nervous, because we all can do it, and it's just making it happen, I suppose. So honestly, Dena, thank you so much for your time. And yeah, you really are amazing. So this has been a gift. And Dena has kindly said we can share the recording and the slides. So I'll send that to you all later on today. So thanks for joining us, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much, Dena. Thank you very much, Lisa. Bye.
Thank
for
you.
your questions. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.